Can you throw me a pen? I apologize.
1.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. I am Council Member Luis Vieira, Chairman of the HART Board of Directors. Please silence all electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. Welcome to our May 6th, 2024 Board of Directors regular meeting, which is now called to order. The meeting format is hybrid with board members physically present at the HART Administrative Office, 1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room, and participating via communication media technology. Please rise and stand if you're able to do so for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A roll call, please.
Director Cameron Cepeda? Director Hartfield? Director Henderson?
Present.
Thank you. Director King? Present. Director Knight? Director Mechanic?
Here.
Director Myers?
Here.
Director Owen?
Here.
Director Schisler?
Here.
Chair Vieira?
Here.
Director Williams?
Here.
Director Wolstall?
Here.
Director Hartfield? Present. And Director Knight?
Present.
You do have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it as always. Next is public comment. We have members of the public who are pre-registered or here otherwise to give public comment. As a reminder, all public comment is limited to 3 minutes, so we appreciate your compliance with that. The first individual is Ms. Raquel Burnett. Ms. Burnett, if you could please come forward, and you are recognized to speak. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, good morning. Like you said, my name is Raquel Burnett, and in April 2026 of 2020, HART had let me go on the basis that I have failed to provide medical reason or a tentative date to return to work. I have already prepared a few packages for you guys so we can follow along with me. One of the first pictures on that package talks about the grievance letter, where it mentions that I needed to provide a doctor's note, which it was impossible for me to provide due to the second picture, when you can see I was having chemotherapy due to breast cancer, and I had a reaction to it that it was causing me to be burned. So I wasn't able to provide the letter to a tentative date to return to work. On the second picture, there's me having surgery. Just to my breast surgery, that it got removed due to breast cancer. Just to also find out later on that day that the surgeons have pierced my small intestine. So I have to go through a second surgery, which you will see on the back, has the other picture. Lastly, ever since I've been back to work, which is October 2022, I've been trying to reach the CEO different ways, and I haven't been able to until not too long ago with Ms. Regis. She was able to get me in contact with a few people that I was supposed to get in contact with last year, but up to this date, I haven't been able to be contacted by any of them. You might ask why I'm here. I'm here because the union has let me down all the way through since day one that they have known that I have the cancer. And in the absence of me not being able to return to work, even though that I came to work, they have been non-existent. They haven't shown any respect, any loyalty as a fellow sister of the union. So that's why I'm actually here. Another reason that I'm here as well is because I know that HART in the past has brought back people to their seniority level. And not too long ago, they brought back to their seniority level to a person on the OCC department. Why I just cannot be treated with the same respect and courtesy that they have been treated? Why do I have to be working 6 days a week in order to maintain my work? And as a matter of fact, I'm still wearing the port because I am still wearing for some tests and analysis in order to make sure that I'm cancer-free. I don't think that I have been treated fairly. So what is it gonna take for HART to take me seriously or to treat me fairly? That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. And to all members of the public who are here, we don't usually engage in back and forth with public comments. So if we're silent, which we usually are, it's not a rejection or anything of what you're saying. It's just our rules. So just FYI, because sometimes it comes off as otherwise. And thank you for that, ma'am. The next person is Mr. John Green. Mr. Green, you're recognized to speak, sir.
Thank you. I'm John Green. As you can see, that during COVID, this was a serious issue in terms of the drivers getting paid as well. So that's another issue that we want to bring up. This is contractual, and at this time, it's budget. It's a budget issue. So you can take up this issue if you decide as a board. Also, because of the ambassador program that you're running, the 3 top officials is in that program, and they're not effectively able to do their job for the union members. So therefore, my 3 minutes not up, I'm on the counter. So therefore, the HART is meddling in union business because they can't do their work. They have 50-hour runs, the top 3, the president, vice president, and the stewards. Some people can't even get representation because they back there. They're only doing their runs 2 days out of the week. So how can the union fully represent their people, as you heard, if they're on your ambassador program? So are you paying them to be an ambassador, or is it meddling in union business because they can effectively do their job? So therefore, we need to resolve this issue. As you can see, it's a concern and it's a divide in the employees, which is going to spill over into the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, we have Ms. Tina Williams. And to let the HART Board members know before Ms. Williams comes up that this past week, we did have a meeting with Mr. Green, myself, Mr. Drainville, our legal counsel, and others to direct these folks to the proper entities and proper individuals. So it is something that is being addressed by the appropriate channels presently. Just go ahead, ma'am. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tina Williams. I'm again before the board. I'm speaking for and stand with constituents in the community that have special needs and are unable to have another means of transportation. The upcoming schedule, pause for a minute. I was at the board a couple months ago concerning the Route 32 at International Mall. It still is not friendly for constituents who have wheelchairs, who are blind. It still needs to go back. It's still not going at the spot that it needs to. The upcoming schedules that are proposed for May 12th, ridiculous. Whoever came, I'm going to say it again, you all don't care. HART is not caring about the constituents who ride the bus. We have young adults, we have elderly with special needs who are blind, who have compromising situations. They're not, the new route schedule changes. Instead of getting up 2 hours to be on time, you're now gonna have to get up 4 hours to be on time. The routes are not connecting. The routes are not connecting. It's worse than the current markup. This is unacceptable. I'm gonna keep coming here. What about your constituents? You all don't ride the bus. You pick and choose when you want to ride the bus. You're not riding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buses to get to work. 3 hours just to go 30 minutes away. These routes need to connect so that your constituents can get to work, to get to babysitting. You're supposed to be taking people where they need to be. These routes don't make sense.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Next is Carol Simon, if Carol's here.
I didn't, no, I'm not.
Okay, disregard, my apologies. Alan Brewster. Oh, yeah.
Alan Brewster. The first thing I want to say is this organization does not take mental health seriously. The policy does not reflect for mental health. The leadership causes psychological scars and bruises with the policies that that is in place here. And I use myself as an example. I went through an issue here with the FMLA. It took 4 months to resolve it. And that was traumatizing mentally. There are men and women who drive these buses, these fixed routes every day, and they're going through psychological trauma from the leadership and the policies. When they book off FMLA, they're given an occurrence instead of it being FMLA, and it goes on for months. Nobody should have to go through that. It's psychological. And then they wonder why there's an attendance issue. I'm still suffering from it. I'm still suffering, but I work through it and I come to work. But there's people, it really affects them. I talk to my colleagues every day about it. There's no collaboration. There's no communication about it. What is it? I'm a number here. That's all I am. I know I am. I'm talked to as a number. I'm treated as a number. Your policy says I'm a number. That's all it is. They don't treat us like human beings. Everybody in this room has some psychological or mental issue that they have to deal with on a regular basis. And it's bad enough that we have to go out there and be verbally attacked by the public. And then come in and management doing the same thing. People get tired. They really do. So they say, you know what? I'm not coming to work today. I'm not coming. Because it's psychological. The whole bus operations at 21st, it's terrible. It really is.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your thoughts and words. Next is Anthony Bush. No? Okay. Thank you. Next is Mike Burnett.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm just going to say a couple words, and it's going to start with retaliation. Retaliation. If HART treat everybody fairly, we wouldn't be here today. We would not be here today. I don't know how one union got hazard pay and the other one didn't, and we frontline workers, okay? So I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but everybody deserves to be treated fairly, okay?
Thank you. Pardon me, please, nobody speak out from the audience. We appreciate that. Thank you for your compliance. Next is Mr. Charles Loeb.
Good morning, everybody. One of the problems that obviously you have, judging at the board meeting last month, was money. I did talk to Mr.
This meeting is being recorded and summarized.
Sorry, sir, go ahead.
I did talk to Mr. Corrada about an idea, and his assistant told me that he passed the idea on to the CEO about business buses and about getting into getting HART, let's say, getting down to busness, as I like to use it, the term I like to use. Anyway, one thing that I would do if I had like official standings or something like that would be to try to organize a whole platform or whole options for the business community over the Chamber of Commerce. I did want to mention a few other oddball ideas in addition to that I came up with in my notes before coming down here today. Number one, about having boxes for old passes and bus schedules over at the transfer centers so that you can probably it would be cheaper to recycle paper than to buy it new. So instead of having them thrown out, you would be able to do that. Also, to color code your change of schedules. Another thing is to put holiday listings upon the schedules. For example, coming up is June 19th. Some people view this as a holiday, some people don't. And I did want to mention to you about that because we don't want to have the service even worse because people think it's on holiday schedule. Another thing I did discuss about with some of the people about some of the connections over here, but I discussed this before the meeting with the union president. However, in the process of it, there was one very nice bus driver. I did want to give the bus driver a compliment to you all because this driver was so nice. The bus driver's number was 3032, so I did want you to know that. It was on bus number 2341, and that, by the way, you have no inside cardboard advertising in that at all, so I did want to mention that too. And I do want to, we always have people complain and all that, but when credit is due for some of the drivers, it is nice to give them credit when it's due. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Next is Mr. Colin Clark. Is Mr. Clark here?
Yeah.
Okay. Take your time, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to give you who I am. I've been working for HART for 14 years. I came down from New York City, and I want to thank you all with the position where I am, for being hired with HART. I have no area, right? But I think what's fair is fair. And we think we need to resolve it. I believe in Teamsters. I believe that we need to work as a team to get things resolved. Now, the issue is it right that we have something in a contract that we're supposed to get paid time and a half for 3 years? We didn't want to start no union. We didn't want to start no strike. We just went along with them not paying us, but it wasn't right. The Teamsters got paid. The supervisors got paid. And I don't know whether the CEO or anyone get, money back there, but that's not right. Now, all of a sudden, we're bringing the issue up, why we wasn't getting paid. There was something in the air that they made say-so on email about us not getting paid, but they don't have nothing in contract. Nothing written down that they was gonna waive it. So I'm just that's the reason why I'm here. I really want to see my money, why I didn't get paid. Because what's fair is fair, And I don't think why the Teamsters got paid and we didn't. It's not right. It's just not right. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Next is Miss Letitia Jones. Oh, no. Okay, no. Okay.
That's the president.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have her marked here as speaking. If Miss Jones,
I am speaking.
go ahead, ma'am.
But Elaine Carbella was before me, but it's okay.
I have her next after you, but go ahead.
To the chair, to this HART executive board, to Mr. Drainville, the CEO. My name is Letitia Jones. I am the elected president of Amalgamated Transit Union Local 1593, the employees who keep the city of Tampa moving. I serve these employees who come in every day putting their lives on the line for this city and for the people's lives that they have opportunity to change. I serve these employees with integrity, character, and with professionalism. I'm not here to address the Nazi attitudes on the agenda of their own. I will not entertain or give any energy to something that has no liability to this local or authority. I stand to use my platform not to fight, but to collaborate with HART for better working conditions, for higher wages, to improve our benefits, to train my coworkers with knowledge on how to invest in themselves, creating portfolios, teaching them what generational wealth and prosperity look like. That is what I represent, a better today and a future for tomorrow. That is why I'm elected president of this union, and the executive board serve with character and integrity. Finally, the legacy that ATU Local 1593 will leave for the people to come, we have led in a way that people want to follow. This is our journey, never forgetting who made this possible. We are the local that keep the city of Tampa moving. We are 1593 who are ordinary employees doing extraordinary work. That is what we represent. You guys have a great morning.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Next is Miss Elaine Caraballo. Hi, ma'am.
Caraballo.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good
My
morning,
apologies.
Board. I'm the Vice President of Local 1593 ATU. I am also one of the bus monitors that overlooks and oversees the markup as it come in, making sure that HART does not violate our contract. Also, I'm looking forward for our May 12th markup that's coming up that Mr. Justin and his team created for us. And another thing, I am one of the leaders of the Ambassador Program. Thank you to Mr. Scott Drenfield and Bobby Edward, who helped come up, create this Ambassador Program. It's going good. Every day we have a goal, it's called HOPE, helping operators and patrons as much as we can every day. So far, it's been doing good. Our bus operators not complaining. They getting off their bus. They're able to get their break what they want. When they come back, their bus is fully loaded. If they have wheelchairs, they have 2 or 3, we get up and we ride the bus with them. We'll ride it to a certain point to where we get the wheelchairs off, we hop off their bus, and we go across the street and get on another bus. And we walk the platform, we talk to our customers, they enjoying it, we give them the feedback on how to get to the airport, to the Amtrak. We have a lot of people coming in, going to South Carolina, Miami, catching a Greyhound and the Flixbus. We are there assisting them as well. So as I can say, our ambassador program is doing excellent. We don't have no complaints from no bus operators, no customers. They loving it, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Next is Karen Peoples. And this is the last registered speaker I have.
Good morning. My name is Karen Peoples. Yes, I was here last month on the board meeting. I come to, like I told you before, board, I come to be a advocate speaker for the drivers and the riders. I am a rider of the bus. I ride the bus 6 or 7 days out the week. You have these people right behind me, and you have good drivers. Could you pass me that bag right there? I'm so sorry, I forgot. Thank you. This bag right here is fully loaded from last year to now with drivers that I put down their numbers and I put down their operator number, bus number, and good customer service, A+. You have drivers in here, I gave them an A+. I want you all to understand one thing. I am going to be here every month and fighting for them, because if I make it better for them, I make it better for the riders. And like the young lady said, Tina, some of you all don't ride the bus, okay? And a lot of times you don't understand what goes on the bus. I challenge you to ride the bus, not 1 hour, not 2 hours, several days throughout the month, several buses, so you can understand what's really going on. You got good drivers out here driving, and they're under a lot of pressure. They're up under a lot of things that they can't come to this board and really say to you all, because it goes in one ear and right out the other. But I'm going to be their speaker. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be here every month to the end of this year, and you will see me 2025, January to the end of January year, to all the way. Because I have to convince you all that if you make a change for the drivers and be better to the drivers, the riders can ride better too. You're making all these decisions, but you're not even having. But I also say the public don't come to you all with this. So I'm going to be the first. And I'm going to stay in your face. So I need you to make sure my name roll off your lips and my name marinate in your minds, so that you'll understand that I'm coming being very intelligent, because I'm a very intelligent, smart woman. But I want you all to understand, you all have got to make a change better for your drivers, for your staff, for your security department. Because when Hotline has their drivers not doing the work that they basically can do, guess what? You have stressed drivers.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Peoples. We appreciate you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll be back next month.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. I don't think there's anybody else here registered. Is there anybody for telephone public comment? Okay, great. And if I may, now that everybody's finished, I wanted to just address some things briefly again with regards to some of the issues that Mr. Green talked about. We've had a meeting and we've directed him to address the appropriate people. We obviously appreciate all of our HART workers 100%. From this, I'll talk to Mr. Drainville, and I know my aide is watching on having an employee community meeting maybe in June or so, if I may. I think that would be a great idea in the next couple of weeks. And then also with Ms. Jones with Local 1593, I think it would be smart if the chair and yourself maybe met every couple of weeks as just course and scope, and I should do that. So I already emailed my aide to reach out to you, and we'll set that up. So again, we really appreciate everybody. Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Director Knight.
Yeah, thank you, and thank for all the comments, especially like even with the health, COVID, and all the things going on. Like I said in the last meeting, Chair Vera, that you say you talk with Mr. Green, Mr. Drainville, whatever it takes, with where you got the disparity, where the supervisor or personnel, it should be consistent with the drivers. If it through checking out everything and it deems that there needs to be something done and that wasn't done, I feel that, and I'm sure I can speak from the board, that concern for the well-being and fairness for all. I didn't take this position to be a go-along, ain't a go-along. We have passion and heart for everybody that's part of HART. So I suggest not just have meetings and find things, but let's seal this. I don't want to see a room full of people on some things that possibly could be addressed. So I said that last meeting, I'm saying it now, whatever it takes. Now, if it need to have a task force or whatever to look into this, I'm willing. I am a 36 and a half former union man. Also, I know the protocols and a lot of experience on that, and I'm for what's fair. And I ask that we check and address this, even the young lady through health or whatever like that, Ms. Reyes, that we do the right thing. I appreciate, and I ride the bus sometimes, and I appreciate the service and the effort from everybody, and we will address this, and this too shall pass. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. And there was actually one person who overlooked, and I apologize for that. Mr., if I'm reading this right, Gus Ignis. There you go. My apologies, sir. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you very much. Members of the board, I want to introduce myself. My name is Paul James Ignis Jr. Everybody calls me Gus. That's my family's nickname for me. I have moved here in 1992 and have been an avid rider of both PSTA and HART for almost 40 years. I currently sit on the Livable Roadways Committee for the TPO, as a volunteer representative for transit riders for long-term planning for our Tampa Bay area. I was recently asked by a member of the staff. I ran for your Citizens Advisory Committee representative position with the TPO last year, came in second out of 13 other people who ran. I think it took us 4 votes to get to a final representative, and I was notified the position was open again. Would I like to run again? I'm an active transit user. I am also been a recent convert to the micro-mobility project here in Tampa. I recently got a voucher for an e-bike. I ride the scooters. I live in West Tampa, And right now, I have I'm employed by MetLife and New Tampa, and I commute once a week on the 275 all the way from downtown to New Tampa to go to work. I have 7 years' experience sitting on the Livable Roadways Committee, because transportation planning is not easy. It is not easily understandable. It takes years to understand just some of their vocabulary. So I'd like to be the representative for the HART Board onto the CAC, the Citizens Advisory Committee, and help make Tampa Bay a better place. We need an interconnected transit system, highway system, trails, everything to work together for people to be able to get from point A to point B. It's very difficult to get from West Tampa to New Tampa to work, but that's where our areas are building for more jobs. West Shore, New Tampa, we have to have other ways besides cars because our congestion is just getting worse and worse. And our lower economic people who can't afford cars do not have dependable ways to get to work. You've already heard people talk about that, having to take 2 to 3 buses, 2 to 3 hours. We have to look at the whole system, look at our land use, look at where we allow developers to build, and make intelligent decisions for our future. So thank you for your consideration today, and I look forward to your vote.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. And I missed Ms. Board Member Williams. I see her hand is up. Ma'am, my apologies. If you wish to speak.
Yes, I just wanted to thank the people that came in to speak this morning. I know we will cover some of the comments they made in new business, but while they're present, thank you for your comments, and we will we take to heart what they have said, and I don't want to echo on the comments that Director Knight made, but I did want to thank them for their comments. And also, I especially want to make a comment regarding the compliment that was given for the bus driver 3032. I think it was 2321, and ensure that we have some way to recognize on the bus drivers in the moment, or some way that can be done on the bus route. So thank you, and I appreciate the comments, and we do take them seriously, and we will make sure that there are actions that will be taken as a board as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Myers, go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, we had 11 speakers to speak this morning regarding issues that we continue to hear. So I'm going to ask our CEO, as you have heard the comments as well, to give us a report back at the next month's meeting as a part of your executive director report, how some of these issues are going to be addressed, particularly when we have staff that retaliating against the employees. That is just a no-nonsense issue. And so I want staff to understand, if you want to continue to retaliate against the employees, this is not the place that you're going to be working, because I'm going to make a motion that you be excused from HART. There's no reason to come to work and retaliate against employees who wants to work because of your position. We provide services, and you need to figure out how you're going to help provide services to the employees and to the constituents. And so, Mr. Drainfield, in your next month report for the month of June, address these issues, particular the FMLA. If it's true that you're not accessible to the employees that wants to meet with you, no CEO should not be accessible to an employee when they want to meet with the employee of the company. So I'll wait to hear your comments at the next month's meeting. Thank you.
And if I may, Commissioner, do you want to make that as a motion, or?
I move that the executive director presents a report at the June meeting regarding the comments that were made on May 6, 2024, regarding public comments.
We have a motion. We have a second by Board Member Knight. Roll call, please, unless if there's any discussion.
Director Cameron Cepeda? Yes. Director Hartfield?
Yes.
Director Henderson? Yes. Director King?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Owen?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Chair Viera?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes.
Director Wolstel?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we move for, and before I move on, I also want to tell, again, the public, I'll just give up my email, luis.viera@tampagov.net. Any questions, if I can't deal with them, I'll direct you to the right people. Myself and CEO Drainville are always very accessible and ready to engage to the extent that we can. There's certain things that, because of legal things, that we're precluded from doing, unfortunately. So I encourage everyone to do that, please. Next, if I may, I'll hand it off to Ms. Julia Mandel, our HART General Counsel, who will moderate the next two sections of the agenda.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. We have two elections on your agenda today as it relates to the Transportation Planning Organization. First is the election for a member and alternate to the Transportation Planning Organization, the TPO Board. Prior to 2022, these positions were held by HART Board members, actual members that sit on the board. But there was a discussion that happened in 2022 about the former CEO actually sitting with the TPO as a voting member. Over time, it kind of got to a place where it was really more appropriate for staff to act as an advisory capacity. So as opposed to continuing that practice, I'm coming back to you to actually elect two members of this board to serve, one in the member position, one in a capacity of an alternate, actual members of the board. Now, I did want to note, as you're going through the decision points of who to nominate, that you currently have members of the Board of County Commissioners who also sit on this board, who also sit with the TPO, and that's Commissioner Myers, Commissioner Owens, and Commissioner Wastel. They cannot sit as members of the HART Board since they are already there in a capacity as a member of the BOCC. So as you are determining who would be the most appropriate members to elect to that position, those three members would not be appropriate for them to be serving in that capacity. So at this time, I'd see if there's any nominations for members of this board to serve as the member of the TPO.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Mandel, is this coming from the TPO's decision to reconsider the voting capacity of the HART representation?
It was my understanding that there was some conversation as to whether or not having the actual CEO of HART sitting as a member versus sitting in a staff advisory capacity, as to whether or not that created some kind of, I don't want to say conflicts, I don't know if it's conflict, but just some sort of not being able to provide that staff advisory capacity. So I think it's been determined it's more appropriate to have members of this board, which has been the tradition until the last couple of years. That's how this has happened.
I think that our vote on the TPO was to remove that going forward. Our outlook was to remove HART as a voting member, but to retain a member of HART as an advisory because they are the industry experts. Having another politician over there in a non-voting capacity, this doesn't make sense, and it doesn't sound like the conversation that we had at the TPO.
I'm not fully familiar with that conversation, and I don't know if there's been a change to the organizational structure of TPO. And potentially, maybe it would be appropriate to put this off so we can get that level of information. I would need to contact the attorney who sits with the TPO to find out if they've changed the policy for that. I was not informed that they had changed a policy. I just understood that we were going to go back to the previous capacity of having a member of this board actually serving on that, on the TPO versus it being the HART CEO serving in that capacity.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think a motion to table this would probably be appropriate, and also within that motion to have our legal counsel communicate with Mr. Wong at TPO to make sure that we have the up-to-date information on what we can or can't do with this board, because that is important to know if they have an advisory position versus an actually voting member position. That may actually change someone's mind on whether or not they want to serve. So that would be my motion to table it, and within that motion for you to communicate with either Cameron in the legal department or Mr. Wong on what steps have been taken and how we should proceed. Second.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Oh, did you wish to say something?
Yes,
ma'am?
and
Go
I
ahead.
chair that, and we have not discussed it the way that is being presented this morning. I chair the TPO, so let's just table it with a vote.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Any further discussion?
And I'll contact Cameron to go ahead and get
Okay.
some clarification on that.
We have a motion, I believe, by Board Member Owen, second, I believe, by Board Member Myers. Any further discussion? Okay, go ahead. Roll call, please.
Director Cameron Cepeda?
Yes.
Director Hartfield? Yes. Director Henderson?
Yes.
Director King?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Owen?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Chair Viera?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes.
Director Wostel?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the next board that I am seeking, we are seeking nominations for, and this is the Transportation Planning Organization Citizen Advisory Committee appointment. This is the next item on your agenda. HART has one seat on that committee. If you remember, in 2023, you had the appointment of the TPO-CAC for Natasha Shearwood to represent HART. Ms. Shearwood is unable to fulfill her appointment as the member of the CAC. Staff contacted all those folks who had previously submitted their applications to see if there were any other members of the public that would like to serve in that capacity. You have a list in front of you of members who have indicated of citizens who have indicated their interest in serving on the HART TPO CAC as a representative, and would ask that you take a vote or seek a nomination of any of these particular individuals to serve in that capacity. So if you have any nominations for any of the individuals on that list to serve in that capacity, I would ask for you to make that right now.
If I may, I nominate Mr. Ignis, who's here.
Second.
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Linda Henderson.
Okay. We don't actually need seconds for those types of nominations, but I'm glad if we get them. But why don't we go ahead then and see if there's any other nominations of anybody else to serve in that capacity.
Will we have an alternate?
There is not an alternate that I'm aware of. Seeing that there's no other nominations, we'll go ahead and close nominations. And what we'll do is I'm sorry, go ahead.
If I can, with the director, do you have a little information? I didn't see that on Ms. Henderson, a little information. I did on Mr. Agnes.
It's there.
Okay, but what you know a little?
She's a staff member of the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and I've worked with her probably over the last 5 years. She has great professionalism and has an intricate knowledge of with the Agency for Persons with Disabilities and clients and families that are intellectually and/or developmentally disabled.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations off of the list to serve as the CAC member? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a vote first for Mr. Inglis, and then see if he reaches a majority. And if he does not reach a majority, we'll go ahead and take a second vote then for the other nominee, and we'll continue to vote until we get a person who reaches a majority. So I would
Point of order
ask-
real quick. Isn't the best way to do that when you have two people to just call on each person and they can say our last name?
We can do it that way as well.
When
That
you have
is-
two people, I think that makes it a lot more
That probably
functional.
makes it a little easier, you're correct. So why don't we go ahead and do it that way? If I can ask staff to read out the names of the members, and you can indicate either Ms. Henderson Eubanks or Mr. Paul Inglis as your vote.
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda?
Henderson, Ms. Henderson.
Director Hartfield?
Ms. Henderson?
Director Henderson?
Linda Henderson.
Director King?
Henderson.
Director Knight?
Henderson.
Director Mechanic?
Henderson.
Director Myers?
Henderson.
Director Owen?
Henderson.
Dr. Schisler,
Henderson.
Chair Viera,
I nominated Mr. Ringus, and I'm going to stick with him. There you go.
Dr. Williams,
Henderson.
and Director Wolstel.
I just don't want the chair to be alone, Mr. Hartfield, so Ignis, yeah.
Ms. Henderson has the majority of the
Thank you
votes.
very much. And Mr. Ignis, I know you're here, sir. We appreciate you showing up this morning, and we know that further opportunities to serve will be here, and we really appreciate you. And to Ms. Henderson, congratulations on your appointment to represent HART at the TPO-CAC. We thank Mr. Hartfield for nominating her and bringing her amazing credentials to our attention. We are looking forward to welcoming you at future meetings with updates on the committee actions and discussions, and please work with staff to schedule those updates. Okay, thank you very much, board members. Next agenda item is approval of the meeting minutes from the April 1st, 2024 Board of Directors regular meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Henderson, second, I believe, by board member and council member Schisler. Please roll call.
Director Cameron Cepeda?
Yes.
Dr. Hartfield?
Yes.
Director Henderson?
Yes.
Director King?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Dr. Mechanic?
Yes.
Dr. Myers?
Yes.
Dr. Owen?
Yes.
Dr. Schisler?
Yes.
Chair Viera?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Wolstel?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next is a presentation from Ms. Lauren Strope of Cherry Beckart on the Audit Executive Summary. You are recognized, Ms. Strope, and I believe you are with us here remotely today.
I am. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to present to you today and for the opportunity not to share my cold with you by presenting virtually. My name is Lauren Strope, and I am a partner at Cherry Beckart, and I had the privilege of serving as your partner this year. Well, I'm going to walk you through our presentation, and really, you can go to the next slide to the agenda. Really, we're just going to be talking through the nature, the timing, the extent, and then the audit results of the audit that was performed. If at any time you have any questions, please don't hesitate to just shout them out. So on the next slide, this is your client service team. So again, I am Lauren, and I was your engagement partner. I did want to point out our second review director, Daniel Godardy, and he does what's called a cold review, which means after we finish our audit, he comes in and makes sure that we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed. So we're very lucky to have him as a part of our team. Next slide. So we have completed audit of HART, and we have issued our opinion over your September 30th, 2023 financial statements, and we have dated our opinions April 15th. We did issue an unmodified opinion on your financial statement, which sounds kind of funny. It used to be called unqualified, but really it's a clean opinion. It's the only type of opinion that you want. We actually have to follow a variety of different standards when we complete your audit. So we issue an unmodified opinion over your financial statements, but we are also required to follow government auditing standards. And we have a comment on that report, and we'll go through that in a second. We also needed your federal and state single audit procedures. And we had a clean opinion on that, meaning that we did not find any issues either in compliance or in internal controls over that complaint. We also issue a management that is required by Chapter 10.550 Rules of the Auditor General of the State of Florida. And then we also issued an unmodified opinion over your investment compliance, again with investment policies dictated by the Rules of the Auditor General and Florida State statutes. So good news there. Next slide. As far as internal control is concerned, we as your auditor don't actually opine on internal control, but those government auditing standards do require us to kind of take a deep dive into the internal controls that HART has over its financial reporting. If we are to become aware of a material weakness or a significant deficiency in those internal controls, we would be required to communicate that to you. Next slide. We did have a deficiency that we do consider to be a material weakness, and a material weakness is just a deficiency or combination of deficiencies such that there's a reasonable probability that a material misstatement could happen in your financial statements and would not be caught on a timely basis. If we go to the next slide, we can kind of dive into what that material weakness is this year. So the material weakness has to do with internal control over financial reporting and really the financial reporting close process. So subsequent to year end, there was really a strain on the current personnel to complete their responsibilities in an accurate and timely manner. And so we noticed that there was an increased length of time in order to close the books, and then there were several entries that needed to be made in order to bring the financial statements in accordance with GAAP after we, the auditor, were provided with that information. So if we go to the next slide, we can kind of walk through what those entries were. So we had both corrected and uncorrected misstatements as a result of this material weakness. So corrected misstatements are a situation where after we receive the financial statements or the trial balance, we as the auditor again have to say these entries need to be made in order to bring this in accordance with GAAP. And so there were two of those this year. One was to reclass a payroll accrual that was improperly recorded to cash even though the payment had not yet happened. And then a closing entry to reverse amounts that were accrued for alternative tax credits. However, you had not met the requirement for revenue recognition at that point because it had not been requested from the federal government. Next slide. So as far as uncorrected misstatements, that's the exact same situation, only for a variety of reasons, management does not make the entry, and I'm just required to communicate that to you. So we had two. In a legal letter, there's a 401A plan in the name of the authority that was not properly unwound, and there's going to be some liability related to that. And in addition, in reviewing the trade receivables, there were amounts that were actually not receivables from any third party, but were just a mechanism for management to track amounts of funding that they had received related to Flamingo fairs. And so there was a receivable and a liability on the books that per GAAP should not be there. So those were the two uncorrected misstatements this year. Next slide. Just some of the qualitative aspects of accounting practices. You did adopt a new standard this year that was GASB 96, and that has to do with subscription-based IT arrangements. So basically, that's the same thing as the leases I came up here and talked about last year, where they were actually being recorded on your books, and you had to record that asset and liability. This is the exact same situation, only it's for subscription-based IT arrangements. So if you look in footnote 2, that'll kind of go through the impacts there. Next slide. We, as auditors, looking at related party relationships and transactions, just to make sure that everything's disclosed properly in the financial statements, and we're pleased to report that we did not find any related party relationships or transactions that were not previously disclosed to us. Next slide. As far as significant or unusual transactions are concerned, this is very dependent entity by entity. But for purposes of this presentation, there's nothing in our professional standards that would say that HART had a significant or unusual transaction in your 9/30/2023 financial statements that we need to cover. Next slide. The financial statements are not all just hard numbers inherently to create GAAP financials. Management has to put a lot of estimate and judgment into that. We as an auditor spend a lot of time looking at those estimates and judgments to make sure that they're reasonable and fair to the financials as a whole. You can see there are a list of those. I won't go through all of them, so you can flip to the next slide. And this just goes through a couple of the other significant estimates that you have on your financials. You can flip to the next slide. We are pleased to report that the financial statements disclosures are neutral, consistent, and clear. Slide. As far as independence is concerned, we, Cherry Becker, are fully independent of HART, both in appearance and in fact. We do perform a couple of non-attest services for you. The only one that I'm aware of is, not a couple, we perform one non-attest service for you, and that is the completion of the data collection form, which we'll complete this week. That's just an upload to the federal government of an apples-to-apples comparison of all your federal dollars that were covered in that federal single audit. Next slide, please. Just a couple other required communications. We're pleased that we did not have any significant difficulties with dealing with management, and we were able to provide everything that we needed. Anytime we had a question, they made sure that we got an answer. We did not have any disagreements with them as far as accounting treatment was concerned. I, as auditor, did not have to consult with folks outside of my engagement team to complete this audit. We did receive a management representation letter the 15th, the same as our audit report date, that basically just said that everything that management told us or provided to us during the course of this audit engagement was to the best of their knowledge and belief. Next slide, please. As far as management consultations, we're not aware of management relying on any outside party in order to come up with accounting treatment. Had that happen, we just want to make sure that both sets of CPA firms got the exact same information and hopefully get to the same conclusion. As far as retention is concerned, our professional standards require every year that we consider each client as far as retention is concerned, but nothing was brought during those discussions that I need to bring to your attention today. As your auditor, we actually don't audit specifically for fraud or illegal acts, but we definitely have that sense on every time we complete our audits. And as of the date of this presentation, nothing has been brought to our attention regarding fraud or illegal acts. Had something been brought to our attention, I usually get that question a lot. Depending on the severity of it, we'd either work procedures into our audit to address that risk or call a meeting with you right away to let you know. For going concern, there are no events or conditions that would indicate a substantial doubt about HART's ability to continue as a going concern. So good news there. Next slide, please. Just a couple of other things. Your ACFA or your annual comprehensive report has a lot of information that goes on just the basic financial statements. You have supplementary information and then required supplementary information. And on as your auditor, we do what's called an in relation to opinion, meaning that every time that there's information there that should tie back to your audited information, we make sure it does, and we get an understanding from management on how these schedules are created. Next slide. In addition, if you look at your ASFR, you do have an introductory and a statistical section. The statistical section takes you about through 10 years of data. And so a lot of it is non-financial in nature, so we actually do not opine on any of that information, but it is included in your annual comprehensive financial report. Next slide. As the auditor, I'm always coming up here and talking about what happened last year, but I did want to make you aware of just some upcoming financial reporting changes. You can see them right there. We're working with management on that. You'll have a slight change in 2025 as it relates to how your compensated absences are calculated. And coming up for next year, there might be some additional disclosures as it relates to GASB 102. But again, it won't be any sort of restatement like it's been the last couple years with new GASBs coming up. It'll just be expanded disclosures. So again, we'll be working with management on that, but just wanted to make you aware. And with that, I think if we flip to the last slide, you can find my contact information. I'll open up it for a second for any questions, but I would just like to point out that I serve HART all the time, not just when I'm doing the audit, not just when I'm presenting. So if anything ever comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, ma'am. We really appreciate you. I see Director Wosel. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Could you briefly touch on, do you believe that compared to 1 or 2 years ago that the internal operations in this regard have improved from where we were 1 to 2 years ago?
Well, you have the exact same material weakness 3 years in a row as it relates to that financial reporting and close and kind of getting the accruals lined up. There are less entries this year, I will say that, but you do still have a material weakness in internal control as it relates to that financial close process.
So we're getting close to cleaning it up, though?
I'm hopeful that next year we will not have to issue that report, and we are working with management on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone
Of
else?
course.
Board Member Hartfield, go ahead, sir.
Thank you for the report. I've had some conversations with our CEO as relates to those weaknesses. I'd like to ask that our CEO, as well as maybe in partnership with you, develop a corrective action plan as it relates to bringing those material weaknesses back into compliance, and whatever support that the board can lend to that to bring that into compliance. But I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
That we develop a corrective action plan.
Okay, we have a motion by Director and Board Member Hartfield, seconded by Director Wosel. Any discussion on the motion? Board Member Sisler, go ahead, sir.
To that point, this has already been developed. It was done in concert with the CFO, Ms. Kirk, and Mr. Drainville, and has already been, there is a plan, it's already in place. The auditors are aware of it, and they're working on it. So there is something already in the works for this.
Okay. Do you wish to still proceed with your
Absolutely.
motion?
If you are,
Oh, go ahead, ma'am, go ahead.
just to say, in your answer, after our report, there is actually a corrective action plan that was prepared by management that is included in your reporting package. Our responsibility as your auditor next year is to come in and say whether or not corrective action plan has been implemented. So we will definitely be looking at that next year.
And Board Member Hartfield, Board Member Mechanic, go ahead, sir. And by the way, if I may, sir, if you're appearing virtually, go ahead and speak up because I can't see your hands or whatever on my screen because of the presentation. Go ahead, Board Member Mechanic.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the report included a statement that there were 2 uncorrected misstatements and that there was liability associated with that. Could you please explain both what the reason was given? I know it's not your explanation, but what was given as the reason why the misstatements were not corrected, and what were the liabilities that you identified?
Sure. As it relates to the 401k plan, because that was not properly unwound, there is liability that's created from that, both mostly tax liabilities. My understanding of it was because it is an estimate that was provided by the attorney, management was hesitant to book it as it was an estimate. But again, we as the auditor, even if it is an estimate, have to report it to you. So I'm not sure if Ms. Cart is on and can provide a little bit more backstory as to the 401A plan and the unwinding of that, but that's what that related to. As far as the next one, for that, it's just an internal tracking purpose that HART was recording both a receivable and offsetting liability, but it was a receivable from a cash balance that's already in HART's name, so you can't really have a receivable unless there's a third party involved, and at the same time you didn't have a liability because you weren't paying a third party. So in that one, it was simply to reduce both the receivable and the liability or payable by the same amount. Did that help at all?
Well, partially. I guess my question was to quantify the liabilities that you identified.
Sure. So the liability, the range that was provided by the attorney was in between $150,000 and $200,000, which is why what accounting standard dictates is you take the higher of those two numbers, so that's why it's 200 as far as the unrecorded liability stemming from the 401A plan.
So that means HART owes the IRS $150,000?
So So, in unwinding that plan and coming up with all of the penalties, fines, and interest, that's what that attorney is estimating the liability is, but the plan has to be unwound to determine the actual impact.
Okay, what about what was the quantified liability on the other misstatement?
Sure, let me go back real quick. I don't want to speak incorrectly. So you $433 receivable and a $433,000 liability that was offsetting. So you didn't have a receivable and you didn't have a liability.
So does that mean there is liability to someone, or there is no liability?
That means that, and for that second one, there is no liability. So when we were asking where the receivable would come from, we were told that it would come from cash that HART already had. So you didn't have a receivable, and then when we found the offsetting payable, you don't owe anyone $433,000 either. It's just a internal tracking mechanism that management was utilizing for the Flamingo fairs.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Anyone else? Board Member King, go ahead, sir.
Just a quick question, Ms. Beckert. The errors that we're referring to here, are they in any way consequential or material to the ongoing operations of HART?
So they are to your financial statement as a whole. As far as a go forward, a lot of this relates to your financial statement close process and ensuring that different accruals are booked as a part of that process. So I would look to that corrective action plan and working with management to ensure that those accruals are properly booked for next year to ensure that that does not happen again, because otherwise it will most likely be a funding again next year if the books are not properly closed.
Ma'am, I'm not certain if you understood me, but that's not really what I'm asking.
Okay.
Do you consider these to be material deficits in how HART is operating or not?
Yes, which is why it's a material weakness and internal controls that was reported on your AFR. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And before I recognize Mr. Hartfield, ma'am, go ahead if you wanted to.
Good morning to the chair, Mr. Drainville, and to the board members. Mr. Drainville just asked that I approach you to clarify the two uncorrected items that were discussed, and I know that the auditor had mentioned my name. I just want to mention, the first one was the 401A plan, and the 401A plan is a deferred compensation plan for the CEO only. It was discovered in maybe 2020 that our plan was faulty, and it wasn't created in proper accordance with the Internal Revenue guidelines. So this board, in April of 2022, gave us authority to unwind that 401A plan, create a new one, and then pay out the faulty plan. Because it was faulty, anyone that received money from the plan cannot roll it over into another plan and has to recognize that money that we give them as ordinary income. So the liability to HART that the board agreed to pay was the tax consequences that they will realize when they record as ordinary income. And Attorney Adams had estimated that to be $150,000 to $200,000. We believe it is going to be less. There's only 3 prior COs in that plan that we have to pay out. We do have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with HR, legal, and the financial folks to finally dissolve that original plan. So we do have a new plan, and our current CEO is in a good plan. But the prior CEOs were in a faulty plan, and we have to unwind it. And I do have our attorney here if you want to have additional information, but I think I explained it pretty good. Okay, so that is the liability, the tax consequences. The receivable that was mentioned, and I think that was the $400,000 plus $1,000, 433. That was an internal receivable. And so we received money from our Flamingo Fairs into a bank account, and then we transfer it either to HART or to PSTA. the amount that was due to HART, we recorded as a receivable. It was really an internal receivable and shouldn't have been recorded as a trade receivable nor a trade liability. So it's really a book entry. We booked it incorrectly, and we will correct that and make sure that we record those as internal receivables and payables. So there was no liability to anyone, no receivable from anyone other than to ourselves. And those are the two. The other item that I just want to mention very quickly is the corrective action plan, and it is in your financial report on page 410. And it's basically a letter from me to the auditors to say how we're going to correct the findings. We do have a meeting scheduled, our first meeting on Wednesday. And when we talk about internal controls, it's really the ability for us to detect and correct errors that should occur. So these items should be corrected and should be detected and corrected prior to the auditors coming in. We're going to look at those procedures, make sure we tighten up those procedures so that when auditors come in, everything is properly recorded and we don't have any findings.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Board Member Hartfield, go ahead, sir.
So I'm going to follow up. Know that with our one employee, Mr. Drainville, I have complete confidence in you and our CFO and your CFO. So I follow up with this. Does your CFO have the adequate staff to close the books in a timely manner? That was implied by Mrs. Stroh's comments, but I'm asking you, and if not, how can we as the board support you in making sure that your staff, your CFO, has the right people in place to help her close the books in a timely manner?
Thank you. So I can say that most of the positions have been filled. There is one accountant that is vacant right now, so we are working with that, and we have extensive training with the staff we've hired in the last few months to make sure this does not happen again. We are going through the budget process, looking at position control, and really looking at that department. And do we need another accountant in that department? So definitely, that is a top priority right now with us, is staffing. So.
And to follow up on that, so from 2022, the issue with the 401A has been out there. Has Cherry Beckert or Ms. Stroh completed the 5,500 forms from 2022 till now? And was that reflected in a 5,500 form that was submitted?
We were never engaged by management to file anything on behalf of this plan, so I can't speak to what forms were filed.
Do you currently file the 5,500 for the agency?
No, sir, we have not been engaged to do so.
Okay. Who does?
I can't speak to that. I am not sure.
Ms. Kirk?
We can check on this. The 401A plan is managed by our benefits in HR, and so we will check on that and let Mr. Drainville know, and he'll get back with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. And
Thank you.
Board. Next is the consent agenda. The HART Finance and Audit Committee met on April 15th of 2024 and recommended approval for action items 7A through 7D. Are there any questions about staff on these items? And if not, may I have a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
Thank you. Strike that. Director Knight, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Board Member Hartfield, you had a motion, sir, which was seconded by Director Knight, I think. Director Schisler. Okay, excuse me. Roll call, please, if you wish to restate it, sir.
If I'm not mistaken, the motion died because Director Schisler stated that the corrective action plan was already put in place.
I was I didn't want to assume that, so yeah, okay, thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, for following up.
Yes, sir.
It's not dead. He just needs to withdraw his motion.
Okay, there you go. Do you kindly withdraw it?
Mr. Chair, I do withdraw the motion.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, and thank you, Board Member Knight. Okay, now for the consent agenda, items 7A through 7D. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
We have a motion by Board Member Meyer, seconded by Board Member Wosel. Roll call, please.
Director Cameron Cepeda?
Yes.
Director Hartfield?
Yes.
Director Henderson?
Yes.
Director King?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Owen?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Chair Viera?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes.
Director Wolstel?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We next move forward to our CEO's report. Mr. Drainville, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning again, board members. Starting off with the legislative update, on April 7th through the 9th, I traveled to D.C. with a dual purpose, to attend the American Public Transportation Association's legislative conference and to have meetings with congressional delegation and the Federal and Transit Administration staff. I met with key decision makers in the Office of Secretary and USDOT to discuss HART's raise grant application to support Phase 1 of HART's renovation of the 21st Avenue campus. I met with Felisa James, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transportation Policy, John Augustine, Director, Office of Infrastructure, Finance, and Innovation, Julianne Reinbeck, the Advisor for Policy, Program, and Implementation. This team helps advise the Secretary in making final grant award decisions for the raised program, and our goal was to make them familiar with our project. I also met with staff for Representative Laura Lee, Nick Adams, Legislative Director, and Landon Hoffman, her Legislative Assistant. We discussed the community program project funding to support radio replacements and HART's pending grant applications at USDOT. HART and Holland and Knight staff continue to work with the delegation to support all of HART's initiatives. Regarding grant applications, a very productive month in terms of submissions for federal assistance. HART submitted applications for federal discretionary funding for bus and bus facilities grant program for Phase 1 of the heavy maintenance facility remediation and rehabilitation project. HART is seeking a bus and bus facilities grant in the amount of $20.8 million to facilitate Phase 1 of the heavy maintenance facilities remediation and rehabilitation project. Specifically, Phase 1, the project to overhaul the HART's 21st Avenue maintenance campus is relocating the service lane facility and addressing the severe drainage and flooding issues that cause further damage to HART's assets. The second application was low or no admissions, transition diesel buses to CNG. HART, in collaboration with the local stakeholder TECO People Gas, seeking $27,308,061 to replace 33 diesel buses, which are operating beyond their useful life with new low-emissions compressed natural gas buses. On the community project funding, Congresswoman Castor in the amount of $4 million for the Operations and Control Facility resiliency improvements. This project will rehabilitate the current Operations Control Center through remodeling the space to bring all operations team members into single space with new technology that will allow HART to implement real-time communications, tools like the overhead screens that display live transit data. This improvement will reduce response times to emergencies and enable swift troubleshooting to minimize service disruption. The second component of the project is acquiring solar transit pole lighting for over 500 bus stops. Transit pole lighting is an easily deployed solution that offers both security lighting and power for digital signage at bus stops. Second, Congresswoman Laura Lee in the amount of $4.75 million for radio system upgrade. HART needs to upgrade its radio system that is used to communicate between HART's operations center, drivers, and other transit personnel. Communication is critical to HART's operations. It is primarily line to contact between the operations center and our bus operators. Our current communications infrastructure is from 2007 and is past its useful life. Moving on to the finance updates. HART's budget and grant staff kicked off its FY25 budget development process with HART's leadership on March 4th. The plan is to complete the proposed FY25 operating budget and FY25 through 29 five-year capital plan and present it initially to the Finance and Audit Committee on May 20th. The presentation during the Finance and Audit Committee will conclude a discussion of the FY25 budget development calendar. Moving on to HR, also a very productive month in the area of recruitment and rebuilding of the HART team. We filled a few critical positions. I would like to introduce to the Board of Directors our new hires. I see they're in attendance. Please stand when I introduce you. So Director of Budgeting and Grants, Melanie Williams. Ms. Williams previously served as the Director of Accounting for the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority, or TBARTA. In that position, Ms. Williams managed the agency's grant administration, budgeting, and financial operations. In addition to other responsibilities, she has developed and monitored fiscal policies, procedures, and internal controls to ensure compliance with state and federal regulations and statutes. So I want to welcome. And the Director of Human Resources, Daniel Britta. Mr. Britta's career has spanned over 25 years in human resources. Prior to joining HART, Daniel has held a Vice President of Human Resources position with a large construction company in Vero Beach, and other large franchise companies such as Dunkin' Donuts. Daniel holds a Bachelor of Business Management from the Rhode Island College. Thank you. Moving on to internal promotions. Director of Marketing and Communications. Kimberly Green is a seasoned leader in customer service, communications, marketing, and public relations with more than 20 years of experience. At HART, Kimberly oversees customer service, travel training, and paratransit teams, leveraging her powerful communication skills and empathetic leadership style to drive excellence. With a solid background in managing diverse teams and implementing effective communication strategies, Kimberly is known for her results-driven approach and commitment to delivering exceptional service. But prior to her role at HART, Kimberly excelled as a community relations coordinator in public information at Hillsborough County Government, where she honed her skills in external communications, event coordination, and community engagement. A bilingual professional fluent in English and Spanish, Kimberly brings a unique perspective and a wealth of experience to every endeavor, making her a valuable asset to any organization. Preparing for the hurricane season, the Safety Department collaborates with the Office of Emergency Management, Hillsborough County Public Schools, Sunshine Line, and various other county departments to enhance the revise the hurricane emergency plans for this hurricane season. This is a great opportunity to get new stakeholders in the county up to speed on plans should an unfortunate storm event occur. In addition, the Safety Department met with internal stakeholders such as operations, maintenance, facilities, and the service development, to name a few, to update that plan. And board-related matters. It is with great pleasure that I share the announcement that the Mayor of Tampa, through a confirmation by the Tampa City Council, reappointed Melanie Williams to the HART Board of Directors for a 3-year term through January 28, 2027. Thank you for your leadership and continue to support Director Williams. This concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions based on this report? Okay, we thank you very much, CO Drainville, including on the rebuilding of our staff, and we welcome everybody here and look forward to working with you all on our great work. As part of my, and congratulations to Ms. Williams. I know Board Member Henderson and I were privileged and proud to vote for you for another 3 years. You're going to continue to do a great job. As part of my chair's report, I'd like to announce the formation of the Charter Review Ad Hoc Committee as a follow-up of a motion from April 1st of this year. Staff polled the board members assessing their interest and availability to serve in the committee. Directors Hartfield, Mechanic, Schisler, and Williams expressed their interest. Are there any other board members who would be interested? With that, I appoint the following board members to the Charter Ad Hoc Committee, and that would be Mechanic, Schisler, Hartfield, and Williams. Thank you very much all for your service. I suggest that the committee meet bi-monthly, and we can discuss that if y'all are amenable to that. The committee agendas are coordinated by the HART General Counsel with staff support. At the first meeting, the committee would need to elect a chair and discuss its roles, objectives, and timeline to develop recommendations to the full board of directors. Are there any questions or concerns on this? Yes, sir.
If HART General Counsel and these committees, which I support, but if they're making recommendations, I believe that any discussions of increasing people's property taxes needs to be a discussion of this entire board, not a subcommittee. And I believe that that's a critical element. So I'll just leave that there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, anything further? Yes, ma'am. I don't think so, but do we, Ms. Mandel?
Your rules of procedure don't require that. It is within the purview of the chair, but certainly if you want to accede to it, you have that right.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, and lastly, if I may, it's coming up on the 5th anniversary of the death and the murder of Thomas Dunn, who was a HART employee who died while protecting bus workers, or bus riders, excuse me, long week, bus riders 5 years ago. And it's presently set on May 15th. I don't know if we're going to keep it that day. Long story short, with something in my legal practice, I have to go to Texas over those 2 days, unfortunately. Nothing against Texas, of course, but be out of town. So, but it's presently set for May 15th, so if anybody would like to attend, I would encourage people to attend. And I'm having my staff reach out to HART staff for Mr. Dunn's family so I can give them my personal regards and whatnot, because again, unfortunately, my legal practice precludes me from going on that day, if that's where it's going to be. But just for everybody to keep that in mind and just to stay in touch with Mr. Drainville if you'd like to attend. Yes, sir.
I'd like to piggyback a little on Director Warsaw, Commissioner, what he said on the committee report. I thought it was already in agreement. All the committee vote to send it to the general board.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, no, my understanding is that would be recommendations to us, and then we would, this committee wouldn't be empowered to unilaterally make change,
Maybe I
correct?
should make that comment.
Yes.
None of the committees that we have full authority to make decisions. They are recommendations that come to this board, and so that has been your process with all of your committees. That would be no different.
Thank you. The 10 suggestions, not the 10 commandments. So there you go. Board Member Hartfield, go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Chair, for the appointment.
Yes, sir. Oh, no, thank you, and thank you for your work. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Yes, sir. Anyone else? Okay, great. Thank you very much, board members. Moving to our general counsel's report. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention, if you're not already aware, that on this board, there are 2 gubernatorial appointments that exist as part of your policies and as part of actually the special act. They have been vacant for some significant period of time, one vacancy since 2019, the other vacancy since, I think it's 2021. Over the last few years, we have used opportunities to reach out to the governor's office to find out, what appointments are coming forward. We have not had that happen. So Mr. Smith, David Smith, went ahead and reached out again to the governor's office. By way of coincidence, it turns out that a member of our Tallahassee firm happens to be the wife of the governor of appointments, so we were able to get a little more direct access. He has reached out to ask the status and whether or not those appointments will be forthcoming. This is very important as we come up into this review of the FDOT recommendations, which did call on certain items to be involved, and also it allows us some additional access to the governor's office. So we're hopeful that, in fact, we will forthcoming see some gubernatorial appointments, and as you're looking at your charter and as we're looking at some of these other things, I think that will be important for us to also have that perspective. So I just wanted to update you that it's been an ongoing item out there. We're continuing to see if that's going to occur and have some hope that we are moving forward to receiving some additional gubernatorial appointments to round out our decision-making process.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you, ma'am. Next, HART Board committee reports are included in the packet under Section 11. Reports from HART Board representatives are in Section 12. Information reports are in Section 13. Under Old Business, in your packets, you will find a presentation in support of HART's response to a request from Director Myers regarding bus shelters in County District 3. Mr. Dan Rodriguez, Project Manager, will present. Mr. Rodriguez, you are recognized.
Good morning, Chair Vieira.
Yes, sir.
Board members. Mr. Drainville, Dan Rodriguez, Project Manager with the HART PMO. I'm here to give an overview of the BTI program regarding bus stops and shelters. So let's begin with what is BTI. BTI stands for Basic Transit Infrastructure. It is a program of projects that improves the bus stops to provide accessibility for all patrons, especially those requiring mobility and other accessibility devices to utilize our services. The vision is simple. It's to provide aesthetically pleasing, efficient, safe amenities that enhance the customer experience prior to getting on the bus. Here are the program goals. Improving stop accessibility is top of the list. Since HART has an obligation to meet the federal ADA laws, all stops need to be made accessible. Replacing the current shelter inventory, HART has over 600 shelters in its inventory, and just half of them have met their useful life or are in some state of disrepair. Meeting the needs of the community by providing new bus stops, adding lighting, reviewing shelter requests, enhancing the bus stops' waiting experience. And finally, very soon, we'll be adding new technologies to bus stops, such as real-time display boards and map screens. Included in some of those upgrades will be security features, such as bus stop lighting on the pole, as well as on the shelters and around the shelters. One-touch response for audible messages as well. Let's talk about how shelters get placed in our service area. The leading criteria is ridership. When looking to place shelters, we evaluate the number of boardings. HART's standard practice is to place shelters with 20 or more daily riders or daily boardings. Community needs is important, especially if there are a number of boardings that have a higher number of ADA boardings, such as hospitals, medical offices, stops that are located with folks at accessibility challenges, such as the Lighthouse of the Blind, McDonald Training Center, and Self-Reliance, just to name a few. Site readiness is very important as well. A few examples are, does the site have available right-of-way? Are there drainage issues, available sidewalks, and connectivity to where patrons need to go? State of good repair are such as things as, is there a landing pad, a shelter pad already in place? Is there an elevated pad to accommodate buses' ADA ramp when it deploys? Are the surrounding amenities in need of repair or replacement? And finally, the most important, can we afford this improvement now? Are we getting the most for our limited funds? Let's talk about the number of stops in our system, how many shelters we have, and where they all are. The number of stops in this chart was acquired through a bus stop inventory conducted back in 2022. As of our last bus stop inventory, we accounted for 2,256 bus stops, of which were 605 shelters. On this chart breakdown are the totals are shown by district. The backlog of number of stops that require some type of improvement is about 389. Let me explain the bus stops with shelters shown on line 4. The number of existing shelters in the system prior to the switch to new shelters, the new current design, I should say, was 565. Shown in parentheses is the number of new shelters that replaced them, which to date is a total of 26. In addition to the 565 shelter locations, the BTI program added another 40 shelter locations with new design shelters and new landing and shelter pads, some of which even include bus bays. The next two lines are the investments made over the last 5 years at those 40 locations, as well as the 26 shelters replaced. The breakdown per county district is shown, as well as the percentage for each district. Highlighted in the last line is the shelters in the inventory. Thanks to a grant from FDOT, the BTI program manager was able to purchase an additional 16 shelters for the program. This bolstered our inventory to 20 shelters, of which 19 will replace our old shelters, and one is scheduled to go to a new location, which then will bring our total up to 606 shortly. Let's take a look at the backlog of stops needing improvements. HART's funding is very limited year to year to make these capital improvements. Stops needing improvements are reviewed yearly in a similar manner as we do placing shelters. First of all, ridership and ADA accessibility, then it's constructability. In addition to that, we look at spacing and its addition trip generators. With limited funds, the BTI program manager needs to leverage every dollar he can try to get the most from his improvements done in a particular fiscal year. HART coordinates with Hillsborough County, City of Tampa, FDOT, and road improvement projects to incorporate bus stop improvements in their projects. This has been extremely successful, and I would like to thank those partners for their contributions to transit in our county. HART is also able to leverage developers to include bus stop improvements in their projects, as well as purchasing amenities such as shelters, benches, and solar lighting. Our service planning department is also assisting in that effort to ensure that large developments do not exclude transit in their master plans. Revitalizing shelters with this new design helps boost HART's brand, helps our maintenance team keep shelters in the best possible condition. These new shelters are modular, they help fit in tighter right-of-way spaces, as well as provide more coverage in areas where there is available space. The Community Investment Grant, the CIG, is a $5 million funding source acquired through the help of Congresswoman Kathy Castor. This grant was broken up into 3 categories. The design and construction will approximately fund 60 bus stops from the 389 needy improvements totaling about $3 million. Continuing the shelter program by allowing us to replace at least 40 shelters, both replacing our old inventory and at newly constructed shelter locations. This would run about $1 million. The remaining $1 million will go to help kick off the technology at transit centers, bus stops, and shelters. These technologies will include real-time display information, additional lighting and ADA accessibility, and finally push-button annunciators at bus stops with just a pole sign and those with shelters. As we saw on the previous slide, the breakdown of stops and number of needed ADA improvements broken down by county district and its total. Here's a plan on how to use the CIG funds among the county districts. Please keep in mind these are approximations from the list of planned stops. Each will be reevaluated for cost in today's dollars and for current ridership, constructability, and community need. Shown are the approximate stop improvements per district in both construction and in placement of new shelters. Please excuse the underdevelopment of the new technology line. We are diligently working to identify the stops that will have new technology. Just to give you an idea, we're planning on placing screens at real-time information at transit and transfer centers, as well as real-time e-paper screens at time points, bus stops, in lieu of the paper maps and schedules we have today. We will soon be bringing a solicitation to the board to solicit this technology in the coming months for your approval. As you can see on the percentage of funding allocated, the percentages fall in line with the percentage of stops in the district. 1 and 3 cover most of our core and of our service, which is why they'll probably utilize 82% of this funding. That concludes my overview. Thank you for this time and attention. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. We appreciate you, sir. Board Member Myers, you brought this forward. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes.
Or- Thank you.
And thank you for the overview. In District 3, you have 929 shelters, and most of your comments regarding the ADA, in my district and where I ride and see, there are no shelters at all. So how are we going to implement and build new shelters at some of the bus stops? We have the bus stop sign there, but there's no shelter at all, and we're getting into the summer season.
Understood, ma'am. You have 929 stops.
Okay, 929 stops, but
Yes,
still
ma'am.
no shelter or bus seat. I get it.
Okay, you have, in that district, you have 250 shelters out of those 929 stops. We've replaced with 15 new ones there. We have a scheduled 22 more coming to your district with the funds that we have allotted. When it comes down to 929 stops to put shelters, we try to put them at the high ridership areas first. We then go by what's available in right-of-way, what has enough room. Then how it affects traffic, because some of them are in intersections that you have to watch out how they might block the view of drivers and affect the intersection as a whole. So right now, District 3 leads with assets of shelters. We try to get as many as we can because District 3 is in the core. It has the most ridership. So we do attack it from that point. That's why when it comes down to the breakdown, District 3 usually gets the most.
Okay. And there, I received a notice last week that there were some shelters removed off of Nebraska in my district, I guess between 21st Street in Hillsborough.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you gonna- What was the rationale behind that?
There was a couple of shelters removed. They were the Metro Rapid on Nebraska. We removed them and we replaced them shortly after with the new style.
Okay, so I need you all to travel 21st Street. There are no shelters.
21st Avenue? 21st Avenue.
21st Avenue, I'm sorry, you're right.
One of the projects that we have upcoming is going to be, matter of fact, we got a couple of projects coming on 21st Avenue. They'll be placing 3 shelters, 2 replacing 2 old ones. And then on 40th, 21st Avenue and 40th, there'll be a new shelter there. There's good ridership there. It's a transfer point too. So we'd like to replace that one as well.
Okay, and I understand it's all about the good ridership and high number ridership, but those that are riding less still need a place to be seated.
Understood.
They need to be sheltered. Okay?
Understood.
So you say coming soon. What is coming soon?
The one on 21st and 40th is in permitting. As soon as it comes out of permitting, we have the shelters, one of the ones that were bought. That'll be going there soon after it's constructed.
Okay, so do you have a list or when it's going to start and when it's going to end that I can see?
We have a list of stops. The program manager has a list of stops. Again, it comes down to funding. It is funded right now. As soon as it comes out of permitting, it usually takes about 2 weeks to construct. Right after that, after the concrete cures for a week, we place the shelter soon after. So it shouldn't be very long. I mean, I don't know how long it's been in permitting, but it should be coming out of permitting soon. So I would say before the summer.
What's the normal cycle to get a shelter in place? What's the normal cycle?
Okay.
Is it 3 months to get it done? Is it 6 months to get it done?
It usually takes about 6 months. It can take as much as a year, depending. We don't do a lot of easements because usually easements at businesses tend to be a little tough to get because a lot of businesses are from out of state. And to go back and forth, it's difficult to get those spaces. We have some on Hillsborough that we're trying to get. We've been fighting for years to try to get. We wait a few months, see if some management changes, to see if we can change their minds to try to get that done. Sometimes it's as quick as, depending if some places have pads already that are easy to build on. Usually the best places are places that have large sidewalks that already are incorporated that we just have to build on the back of. So it's easy to do that. That could be as easy as 3 months, 2 months, if we have shelters in place. If we don't have shelters and we have to order them, we have to check on funding. If we have the funding, place an order, it takes about 8 to 10 weeks to get shelters in from our supplier. So it depends on where it is. If right now we have some shelters in our inventory, we have a list of stops that are going. 22 of them are going into District 3 out of the 40.
Okay, I just need to see a list. Thank you so much.
Would you like to see the list?
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And if I may, thank you, ma'am, we have Wosel, Hartfield, Knight, Henderson. Go ahead, sir.
This should be brief. I just want to make sure that the districts 1 through 4, those are the mapped single-member commissioner districts. Is that
Commissioner
what-
districts, yes, sir.
I was the one that came out the gate and seconded in support that I do believe that we should have more resources going to District 3. You put 55% going to that district. I appreciate you guys making that effort. I'm sure that there is a work plan that your staff has that we can see. And if there are individual stops that are important to Commissioner Myers, I'm sure that they can be on there. And if you do have the work plan and she feels that in her district, one should be moved closer to the line, it's in our prerogative to be able to make that motion, hear the reasons why we should or shouldn't do it, and if we believe that it's a good decision, she could do that, right? So if we could just get the work plan
Absolutely.
emailed to us so we can all see the
Absolutely. I would
information.
encourage that please, you have one in mind that you have, absolutely, we'll go out there and take a look at it.
And could you just tell me, as far as the resistance that you get to the easements, is it just people, are they just having a general inclination to resist helping or, yeah?
So it turns out usually it's because it's an out-of-state owner. And they most of the time, unfortunately, what's in it for them? And it's unfortunate. And, one that we have is on Hillsborough. We've been trying for a while. The owner they just don't respond. We've had people in the community reach out. So we try to get the backing. I mean, it was referred to us by the community to try to get that moving forward.
Could you, would you mind sending my office that one specific location that you've been trying to get?
I'll be glad to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
This
sir.
is very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And before I go to Director Hartfield, I also did want to mention that this will be forthcoming, but we voted in City Council to look at the CRA, potentially look at assistance with HART, including with these issues. So hopefully more money can be coming through. And that would be through CRA areas, a lot of which are in your district, and Board Member Henderson's district. Hartfield, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Rodriguez. I wanted to talk a little bit about new technology. Excuse my not knowing, do we have something like a app, like an Uber app or a new, like a Lyft app that would help riders identify where the buses are and kind of track that process? Do you have anything like that?
Yes, we do. I think we have a couple of them. The one that I use myself is One Bus Away. So it's an app you load, you press on it, it shows where you are, and by your location, it tells you if you're at the bus stop. You can tell you how long before the bus shows up. Also, you can put down, if you know your bus stop, all bus stops have a number. You
Yeah.
put down your bus stop number, you'll know what time the bus will get there,
Okay.
per schedule.
Is that a HART-owned app?
I'm not sure, do you know, Justin? I think it's publicly used by other agencies as well as developed by one of the colleges, I believe. I'm not sure who owns that.
Okay. What does HART have, or what are we thinking about investing in as it relates to new technology?
Good morning, Justin Willits, Director of Planning and Scheduling. The One Bus Away app is kind of like an open source app. Anybody can use it. It's free, but we send our information through that. But it's the same information you'd see in Google Maps, Transit app, several different platforms. It kind of is just a user preference. What we are entertaining now in an upcoming potential CAD AVL for paratransit and flex service is the ability to have an outward-facing application for on-demand service. But for fixed route, we're going to stick with pushing our data through Google Maps and other transit-related apps. But in the future, we could potentially have our own application for like paratransit, flex service, and on-demand. But they're kind of two different technologies. That's why you hear us talking about paratransit CAD AVL for fixed route, and then, CAD AVL for fixed route and streetcar, and then CAD AVL for flex and on-demand and paratransit service.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Board Member Knight and Board Member Henderson, go ahead.
Again, good presentation. Two questions, one question, one concern. First question, temporary shelters that with wind or anchor right, do we have the means of possibly putting some type of shelter in some of these areas of concern until some get built? Then you can use those same one to transfer somewhere else instead of, I'm hearing about 6 months, some of those things, and customers are concerning. Another thing's been coming up is some of these shelters and some of these high ridership areas, including Hillsborough Avenue from 15th Street, think till like 30th, on Nebraska and some other areas that the customers are getting somehow harassed in ways. You got homeless, and I'm not concerned for the homeless, but for a long period of time, the whole shelter is all there and they can't even get on them. So I'd like to know, what are you doing about that? Are you hearing things on that, or what can be done to help the customer?
No, that's a great point. What we've done in certain areas, and we've done it on Nebraska too, sometimes you get an element that just takes over the shelter and sits there, and some of our poor riders have to stand outside and not feel comfortable sitting inside. So what we've done is, this modular design gives an openness, but yet gives you more coverage than our other shelters, and has a higher, longer roof, right? So it reaches out further. But what it does also, it keeps it open, so you can see inside. And then what it does is, it discourages people from sitting there a very long time. We've also done where we've changed the benches out, and we've put some leaning rails, because in some routes, it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's not that long, and most people, our patrons are some of the best. They're very savvy. They know what time the bus is coming. They know it better than we do. So they know what time to show up. They're not there a long time. So we put those leaning rails in for a little while, kind of discourage people from sitting there too long, and then once that clears out, then we go and put the benches back. So as we change and transition out of some of these shelters that give too many sides that become homes. So we try to discourage that with this nice open design. As far as temporary, that's a very fine line because these things have to meet wind load. And we're trying to transition to having one type of shelter so that maintenance can take care of one type of shelter. These are very good in maintenance. There's no glass. There's nothing to really replace. The lights are state-of-the-art LEDs. They notify us when they're out. So there's no more maintenance having to go out and see if the light works. No, now we get a notice that light doesn't work. So all these new shelters have that type of technology in it, and that's where we're trying to move forward so that everybody has a safe place to sit.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is temporary shelter, where they got those anchors that they can put down, that it would accommodate the amount of wind, and it's only a temporary state. They put tents up all over America. So if you can look at that in a way, until they put some permanent shelters up, that might be an opportunity for HART to do that, and then they can use these. If they put together, you anchor them according to what the guidelines should be.
Right. We can take a look at it. I mean, we'll visit that idea. It's going to be difficult, especially with our permitting process.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Board Member Henderson, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for your report. How do you determine what is an ADA stop?
Well, to me, an ADA stop is a stop that anyone can access, right? So not just able-bodied folks that can just walk onto the grass area and get on the bus stop and wait for the bus stop. So everybody has to have equal access to that stop. So what we do is, does it have a landing pad, which is ideal, especially if it's elevated, because our buses now, they have a ramp that ramps out, right? So as that ramp comes out, it has to be at a certain degree so that it's not too steep and it doesn't dump somebody out. So the higher the pad, the flatter the ramp, easier in and out. What also we look at is the connectivity to that pad, because you don't want to just put a pad in the middle of somewhere and then how do they get off? So we have to go and look at sidewalk connectivity. Where are they going? You know, is the stop in the right place? Sometimes we have to relocate the stop to a closer intersection. What we try to do with the Vision Zero that's going on with the county and the DOT is move these stops to crosswalks, places where people have access to cross safely as well. So ADA is a civil rights law, right? Everybody has equal access, right? But it's also a full-blown look at where it is and how does it fit.
Okay, thank you. And another thing that I wanted to bring up is that obviously funding is our issue. I wish we could have stops everywhere, you know, the ideal situation. But the list that Director Myers is asking for is a good thing for us to have access to all the time, even the public, to just say, this is the future plans of shelters in our community. And then the after, where there is no funding, there should be, who's in line next? You know, that would be helpful as well. I do have a lot of conversations with our community because of city council and now, you know, them knowing that I sit on HART, indicating that, you know, we deserve a new shelter. And so the future plans should be indicated as well. If we're just waiting on funding, then let that be the case. And then also providing a list of those areas that are challenging, where we have not been able to get bus stops in that area because of businesses that may be out of town. Providing that information so that I can say that, especially on Hillsborough, that corridor is really important. And having that information just would be so valuable to us as board members and for the community to know that.
I appreciate that, and the help would be awesome. Jesse mentioned the Hillsborough, right? There's certain sections, especially in your district, there's areas of the DOT roads and even some of Tampa's roads that the sidewalk is only 4 or 5 feet. And the right-of-way line is right on the back of it. So it's very difficult. You need at least 10 feet to put a shelter, right? Because you need 8 feet for the ADA ramp to deploy and the person to back out in the wheelchair. So minimum, you need 9 to 10 feet, minimum. So if there's not 9 to 10 feet, as soon as you walk out there and there's only a small sidewalk, now you got to look at an easement and who's willing to give an easement. Not many. We normally don't pay for easements because we just don't have the budget, and that'll prolong it even longer to go through having lawyers sign off on things and get things back and forth and go and pay those things off. We did some things in the past, it takes too long, and people lose interest, and then that's the end of it.
Understood. Just as a recap for me, because I don't necessarily like making the motion and giving you all a timeline. I know you all have a lot to do. But for me, that would be extremely helpful for us to provide future shelters and indicate that those are the ones that would be next if we had the funding, or if we're seeking grant opportunities for that. And then also the areas where we're having challenges. So without it being a motion, it is something that I do think that should be documented. And I know it'll take some time probably to gather all that information, but it would be helpful for everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, thank you very much. You were, if you can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen. You were in the kitchen today, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right.
We appreciate you. Is there any other old business? Is there any new business? Okay. This concludes the regular business for today. I hope that everybody, we have Memorial Day coming up. I hope everybody has a meaningful Memorial Day. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you. I was like half asleep, I swear to God. Legal practice. So I tell you, being music, no, we don't need a